The morning sunlight filtered through the tall windows of Metropolitan Hospital as Emma Carter pushed through the revolving doors. The familiar scent of antiseptic and the echo of footsteps against polished floors brought an uncomfortable tightness to her chest. At 29 years old, Emma had learned to mask her anxiety well. Her auburn hair pulled back in a neat bun, her navy blue dress crisp and professional. She clutched her leather bag tightly, reminding herself this was just a routine examination, nothing more. The reception area buzzed with quiet activity. Patients filled out forms while nurses moved efficiently between stations. Emma approached the desk and gave her name to the receptionist, who smiled warmly and handed her a clipboard. As she filled out the familiar medical forms, Emma's mind wandered to the promotion she had recently received at the architectural firm where she worked. Life had finally found a rhythm after years of rebuilding herself. She had created a comfortable existence, surrounded by good friends and meaningful work. The wounds of the past had scarred over, though they never truly healed. A nurse called her name, pulling Emma from her thoughts. She followed the woman down a long corridor lined with examination rooms. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, and Emma noticed her reflection in a window as they passed. She looked composed, confident even, but inside her stomach twisted with the usual pre-exam nerves. The nurse led her to room 12 and instructed her to change into the examination gown. Emma nodded, stepping inside as the door clicked shut behind her. The room was standard medical fare with white walls, a cushioned examination table covered in paper, and the usual array of medical equipment. Emma changed quickly, folding her clothes neatly on the chair provided. She sat on the table, the paper crinkling beneath her, and took several deep breaths. The air felt cold against her skin. She wrapped her arms around herself and stared at the door. Waiting for the doctor to arrive, footsteps approached from the hallway, confident and measured. Emma straightened her posture, preparing herself for the routine interaction with a stranger who would ask standard questions and perform standard tests. The door handle turned, and a man in a white coat entered, his attention focused on the tablet in his hands. "Good morning, Miss Carter. I'm Dr. Sullivan, and I'll be conducting your examination today." The voice hit Emma like a physical blow. Her breath caught in her throat, and for a moment, the world seemed to tilt on its axis. She would know that voice anywhere, despite the years that had passed. Slowly, the man looked up from his tablet, and their eyes met. Time stopped. James Sullivan stood frozen in the doorway, his face draining of color. His dark hair, now touched with gray at the temples, was shorter than she remembered. The sharp features she had once traced with her fingertips had matured. Lines etched around his eyes and mouth that spoke of stress and sleepless nights. But those eyes, those deep green eyes that had once looked at her with such love, now reflected pure shock. "Emma," he breathed, the tablet nearly slipping from his grasp. She could not speak. Her heart hammered against her ribs so hard she thought it might break through. 6 years vanished in an instant, and she was back in their shared apartment, standing by the window, watching him pack his bags without explanation. The pain of that day crashed over her like a wave, threatening to drown her. James recovered first, though his hand trembled slightly as he set the tablet down. "I had no idea you were my patient. I didn't see your first name on the schedule, just the last name and appointment time." Emma found her voice, though it came out harder than she intended. "Dr. Sullivan, how professional you've become." He flinched at her tone but said nothing, his jaw tightening. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken words and 6 years of unanswered questions. Emma watched as he struggled to maintain his composure, the professional mask slipping to reveal glimpses of the man she had once known so intimately. "Perhaps we should reschedule," James suggested quietly. "I can have another doctor take over your examination. Dr. Patricia Chen is available, and she's excellent." "No," the word came out firmly, surprising even Emma herself. "I came here for an examination, and I'm not leaving until it's done." "You're a doctor, aren't you? Then do your job." James looked at her for a long moment, something unreadable passing across his features. Then he nodded slowly, picked up his tablet, and began reviewing her medical history. His professionalism was impeccable, but Emma could see the tension in his shoulders. The careful way he avoided looking directly at her unless necessary, as he asked standard medical questions. Emma's mind drifted back to how they had met. It was at a charity fundraiser 7 years ago. She had been a young architect presenting her first major project, and he was finishing his medical residency. They had collided near the buffet table, literally, sending champagne glasses tumbling. The embarrassment had melted into laughter, then conversation, then coffee that lasted until sunrise. Within 3 months, they were inseparable. Within a year, he had proposed on the same riverside where they had watched the dawn after that first night together. Emma. James's voice pulled her back to the present. I need to check your blood pressure. She extended her arm mechanically, watching as he wrapped the cuff around her bicep. His fingers brushed her skin, and the contact sent electricity through her body. She saw his hand hesitate for just a fraction of a second, and she knew he had felt it too. The machine beeped, displaying numbers that James frowned at. Your blood pressure is elevated, he noted, his voice carefully neutral. Are you feeling anxious? What do you think? Emma replied, unable to keep the edge from her voice. James met her eyes then, really met them, and she saw pain reflected there that matched her own. Emma, I know this is incredibly awkward. If you want to stop, we can stop. I told you to continue, she said firmly, though her voice wavered slightly. I'm fine. But she was not fine. Her heart raced not from fear of the examination, but from the proximity of the man who had shattered her world. James had been her everything. They had planned a life together, chosen paint colors for their future home, discussed names for children they hoped to have. Then one day, he simply left. No real explanation, just a hastily scribbled note saying he had made a mistake. That they were not right for each other, that he was sorry. She had called him dozens of times, sent countless messages, but he never responded. He had vanished from her life as completely as if he had never existed. As James continued the examination, Emma studied his face. The years had changed him. The boyish enthusiasm she remembered had been replaced by something more guarded. There were shadows under his eyes that suggested too many sleepless nights. His hands, though steady and professional, bore the marks of long hours and hard work. This was not the same man who had left her, yet somehow he was still James. Still the person she had loved more than she thought possible. All the preliminary tests look good, James said finally, stepping back and removing his gloves. I'll need to order some blood work, but everything seems normal. You should receive the results within a week. Emma slid off the examination table, pulling her gown tighter around herself. Thank you, Dr. Sullivan. The formality of her words seemed to wound him. He opened his mouth as if to say something, then closed it again. For a moment, they simply looked at each other across the small examination room. Two people who had once known each other's souls, now strangers separated by time and hurt. I know I have no right to ask this, but could we talk? Not here, not now, but somewhere private. Please. I owe you an explanation. Emma's first instinct was to refuse, to walk out, and never look back. But something in his expression stopped her. Behind the professional facade, she saw genuine remorse, a deep sadness that resonated with her own. Against her better judgment, she found herself nodding. The coffee shop on Riverside Avenue. Tomorrow at 7 in the evening? You get 30 minutes, James. That's all. Relief flooded his features. Thank you. I'll be there. Emma gathered her things and changed quickly, desperate to escape the confines of the small room. As she walked past him toward the door, James reached out, his hand hovering near her arm but not quite touching. Emma, for what it's worth, I'm sorry. For everything. She did not respond, could not respond without breaking down completely. Instead, she walked out of the examination room and did not look back, even though every fiber of her being wanted to turn around, wanted to demand answers right then and there. But she kept walking through the corridors. Past the reception desk, out into the bright sunlight that seemed tearful for the turmoil raging inside her. Only when she reached her car did. Emma allowed herself to feel the full weight of what had just happened. She gripped the steering wheel, her hands shaking as tears finally spilled down her cheeks. James was back in her life, even if only for a moment, and every carefully constructed wall she had built around her heart threatened to crumble. Tomorrow, she would hear his explanation. Tomorrow, She might finally understand why the man she loved had abandoned her without a word. But today, she simply cried for all the years lost, for the pain that never fully faded, and for the traitorous part of her heart that still beat faster at the sight of him. Emma barely slept that night. She tossed and turned, her mind replaying the encounter at the hospital over and over like a film stuck on repeat. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw James standing in that doorway, shock written across his face. She remembered the way his hands had trembled slightly when he took her blood pressure, the careful distance he maintained, as if afraid that getting too close might shatter them both. By the time dawn broke through her bedroom curtains, Emma had made and unmade her decision to meet him at least a dozen times. She spent the day at work unable to concentrate. Her colleague and best friend Rachel Torres noticed immediately. Over lunch in the office cafeteria, Rachel leaned across the table with concern etched on her face. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "What happened?" Emma stirred her soup mechanically, watching the vegetables swirl in circles. "You remember James?" Rachel's eyes widened. "Your ex? The one who disappeared 6 years ago. What about him?" "He was my doctor yesterday." At the hospital, a spoon clattered from Rachel's hand onto her tray. "You're kidding." "Please tell me you're kidding." Emma shook her head, finally meeting her friend's eyes. "I wish I was. And I agreed to meet him tonight. He wants to explain why he left." Rachel reached across the table and gripped Emma's hand firmly. "Are you sure that's a good idea?" "Emma, it took you years to get over him. Years. Do you really want to open that wound again?" "I never got over him," Emma admitted quietly. "I just learned to live with the pain. Maybe hearing his explanation will finally give me closure. Or maybe it will destroy you all over again," Rachel said gently. "Just promise me you'll be careful. Guard your heart, okay?" Emma nodded, though she wondered if it was already too late for that. Her heart had never truly belonged to her after James left. She had dated other men over the years, nice men who treated her well. But none of them could reach the place James still occupied deep. Inside her chest, the afternoon crawled by with excruciating slowness. Emma changed her outfit 3 times before settling on a simple green dress that she told herself she had not chosen because it matched James's eyes. She arrived at the Riverside Coffee House 10 minutes early, her stomach in knots. The cafe held so many memories. This was where James had first told her he loved her, where they had spent countless Sunday mornings reading newspapers and stealing bites of each other's pastries. She chose a table by the window overlooking the river, the same spot where they used to sit. The water flowed peacefully below, reflecting the orange and pink hues of the setting sun. Emma ordered chamomile tea, though her hands shook too much to drink it. She watched the door, her heart jumping every time someone entered. James arrived exactly at 7, his punctuality one of the many things she had loved about him. He wore casual clothes now, jeans and a dark sweater that made him look younger, more like the man she remembered. His eyes found her immediately, and he crossed the cafe with hesitant steps, as if approaching something fragile that might break. "Thank you for coming," he said softly, sliding into the seat across from her. "I wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't," Emma replied honestly. "Start talking, James. You have 30 minutes?" He ordered coffee from the passing waiter, then turned his full attention to Emma. She saw him take a deep breath, steeling himself for what he was about to say. 6 years ago, 3 days before our wedding, I received an envelope at the hospital. There was no return address, no note, just photographs. His voice was steady, but strained. Photographs of you with another man, kissing him, his hands on you. The images were taken outside a hotel downtown. Emma felt the blood drain from her face. "What, James? I never cheated on you." "Not once? Not ever." "I know that now," he said quickly, anguish filling his expression. "But at the time, I was devastated. The photos looked so real, so damning. You were wearing the blue dress I had bought you for your birthday. The man had his arms around you, and you were smiling. I didn't know what to think, what to believe." Emma's mind raced, trying to remember. Then it hit her like a thunderbolt. "My cousin? Oh my God, my cousin Daniel came to visit that week. He surprised me downtown after work, and we went to dinner at the hotel restaurant. James, he's my cousin. We took a photo together outside because he wanted to show his wife the building's architecture. James closed his eyes, his face contorting with pain. I know. I found out the truth 2 months ago, but by then, 6 years had passed. 6 years of believing a lie. How did you find out? Emma demanded, her voice rising slightly. Several patrons glanced their way, but she did not care. And why did you wait 2 months to tell me? James ran his hands through his hair, a gesture Emma recognized from when he was deeply distressed. Do you remember Diana Morrison? She worked at the hospital with me during my residency. Emma remembered her vaguely, a petite woman with sharp features who had always seemed overly friendly with James. The nurse who was always hanging around you. She wasn't just a nurse. She had feelings for me, feelings I never reciprocated because I was completely in love with you. James's voice broke slightly. 2 months ago, she showed up at my office drunk. She was going through a divorce, her life falling apart, and she wanted to confess. She told me everything. How she had been obsessed with me for years. How she hired someone to Photoshop those images of you and your cousin to make them look romantic. How she sent them to me anonymously, hoping I would leave you. Emma felt sick. The room seemed to spin around her. All those years of pain, of wondering what she had done wrong, of blaming herself for not being enough, and it had all been based on lies. Fabricated evidence created by a jealous woman she barely knew. She destroyed our lives, Emma whispered, tears streaming down her face. She took away our future, our wedding, everything we planned together. And you let her. You believed those photos without even talking to me about them. I know. James reached across the table, his hand hovering near hers but not touching. Emma, I was a coward. I should have confronted you, should have demanded an explanation, should have trusted what we had. But I was young and stupid and prideful. I thought I was being strong by walking away, that I was protecting my dignity. Instead, I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me. You destroyed me too, Emma said, her voice barely audible. Do you have any idea what it was like? Waking up to that note, trying to call you hundreds of times, crying at the church where we were supposed to get married. My friends and family didn't know what to tell people. I didn't know what to tell myself. I thought I had done something wrong, that I wasn't good enough, that somehow I had failed you. James's face was wet with tears now. You were perfect. You are perfect. The failure was mine. All mine. I spent 6 years trying to convince myself I had made the right choice, that we weren't meant to be together. I threw myself into work, took positions in different cities, anything to avoid the memories. But nothing worked. Everywhere I went, I saw you. Every patient reminded me of your kindness. Every sunrise made me think of those mornings we watched the dawn together. Then why did you wait 2 months? Emma asked again, needing to understand. If Diana confessed 2 months ago, why didn't you come find me immediately? James looked down at his hands. Fear. Pure, paralyzing fear. I convinced myself you had moved on, that you were married or engaged, that you would hate me. I told myself I had no right to disrupt your life after what I did. But then yesterday, when you walked into that examination room, I saw you wearing the necklace I gave you for our first anniversary. I knew I had to tell you the truth. I owed you that much, even if you could never forgive me. Emma touched the silver pendant at her throat unconsciously. She had worn it every day for 6 years, unable to let go of that small piece of their love. She had told herself it was just a necklace, that it meant nothing, but that was another lie. Like James, she had never truly moved on. I don't know if I can forgive you, Emma said honestly. What you did, the way you left, it broke something inside me. I learned not to trust, not to believe in forever, not to give my whole heart to anyone because it might be ripped away without warning. I understand, James said quietly. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I just needed you to know the truth, to know that what we had was real, that you did nothing wrong. You were always enough, Emma. More than enough. You were everything. They sat in silence for several minutes, the weight of 6 lost years pressing down on them. Emma watched the river flow past the window, endless and unchanging, while her entire world shifted beneath her feet. She thought of all the what-ifs, all the paths their lives could have taken if Diana had not interfered, if James had trusted her, if they had gotten married as planned. "I have a question," Emma said finally. "Did you love me? Really love me? Or was our entire relationship something I imagined?" James looked at her with such intensity that she felt it in her bones. "I loved you more than I knew it was possible to love another person. I still love you. I never stopped, not for a single day. That's what made the betrayal I thought happened so devastating. I didn't just lose you, Emma. I lost my future, my dreams, my reason for becoming the best version of myself. You were my home, and without you I've been lost ever since." Emma felt her carefully constructed walls beginning to crumble. She wanted to stay angry, to hold on to her righteous fury, but beneath it all was a truth she could not deny. She still loved him too. Despite everything, despite the pain and the years and the betrayal, her heart had never let him go. "This doesn't fix anything," she said, her voice shaking. "Knowing the truth doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't give us back the time we lost." "I know," James agreed, "but maybe it's a start. Maybe, if you'll let me, I can spend the rest of my life trying to make up for the biggest mistake I ever made. I'm not asking you to take me back or to forgive me right away. I just want a chance to prove that the man you loved is still here. Buried under 6 years of regret, but still here. Still yours, if you'll have him." Emma wiped her tears with the back of her hand. Her emotions, a tangled mess of anger, pain, love, and hope. "I need time. I need to process all of this, to figure out what I feel beyond the hurt." "Take all the time you need," James said immediately. "I'll wait. I've waited 6 years already. I can wait as long as it takes." Thunder rumbled in the distance, and the first drops of rain began to fall against the cafe windows. Emma watched the water streak down the glass, distorting the view of the river beyond. Everything felt uncertain, precarious, like standing at the edge of a cliff not knowing if stepping forward would lead to solid ground or empty air. But as she looked at James, really looked at him, she saw something she had not allowed herself to see yesterday at the hospital. She saw genuine remorse, deep love, and a man who had been just as broken by their separation as she had been. He had made a terrible mistake, but he was human, flawed and hurt, and trying to make amends. "One step at a time," Emma said softly. "We can try talking again. See where it goes. But I'm not making any promises, James. You hurt me too deeply for this to be easy." Hope flickered across his face like sunrise breaking through storm clouds. "One step at a time," he repeated. "That's all I ask." "Thank you, Emma. Thank you for giving me this chance." As they sat together watching the rain fall, neither knowing what the future held, Emma felt something shift inside her chest. The iron grip of pain that had squeezed her heart for 6 years loosened just slightly. Maybe healing was possible. Maybe love could survive even the deepest wounds. Maybe, just maybe, they could find their way back to each other. The path would not be easy, but for the first time in 6 years, Emma felt something she thought she had lost forever. She felt hope. The rain continued through the night and into the next morning, washing the city clean. Emma woke to the sound of water pattering against her apartment windows, a gentle rhythm that matched the cautious hope stirring in her chest. She lay in bed for a long time, staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation with James over and over. The truth had been revealed, the wounds exposed, but now came the hardest part. Deciding whether to let him back into her life, whether to risk her heart again for a love that had once destroyed her. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from James. "Good morning. I hope you slept well. No pressure, but I'd love to see you again when you're ready. Take your time." Emma read the message 3 times before setting the phone down without responding. She needed to think, to sort through the tangled mess of emotions that had kept her awake most of the night. Part of her wanted to run straight back to him, to reclaim the life they had lost. But another part, the part that had spent 6 years rebuilding herself from the ruins he left behind, whispered warnings about trusting too quickly. She spent the weekend alone. Turning off her phone and ignoring Rachel's concerned messages, She needed silence, space to breathe and feel without anyone else's opinions clouding her judgment. Emma walked through the park where she and James used to jog together on Sunday mornings. She visited the bookstore where they had spent countless hours browsing, often leaving with armfuls of novels they would read aloud to each other in bed. Every corner of the city held memories, and for the first time in years, Emma let herself remember without pushing the thoughts away. By Monday morning, she had made a decision. She texted James a single sentence. "Coffee tomorrow afternoon? Same place, 3 o'clock. His response came within seconds. "I'll be there. Thank you." Emma arrived early again, unable to help herself. She ordered tea and chose a different table this time. It's not by the window, but in a quieter corner where they could talk without being overheard. When James walked in, he spotted her immediately, and the smile that lit up his face made her heart skip a beat. He looked lighter somehow, as if confessing the truth had lifted a weight from his shoulders. "Hi," he said, sliding into the seat across from her. His hair was slightly damp from the drizzle outside, and he wore a gray sweater that Emma recognized from years ago. He had kept it all this time? "Hi," she replied, surprised by how nervous she felt. This was James, the man she had once known better than herself, yet now he felt like a stranger she was meeting for the first time. They talked for hours that afternoon. Not about the past, not about Diana, or the photos, or the pain. Instead, they talked about who they had become in the years apart. James told her about his work at Metropolitan Hospital, about the patients whose lives he had saved, about the nights he worked himself to exhaustion to avoid going home to an empty apartment. Emma shared stories about her career, about the buildings she had helped design, about the promotion that had finally made her feel like she was moving forward instead of just surviving. "I'm proud of you," James said softly when she finished describing her latest project. "You always had such incredible talent. I'm glad you didn't let what happened stop you from achieving your dreams." "I almost did," Emma admitted. "For the first year after you left, I could barely function. I would show up to work and stare at blank pages for hours. Rachel practically dragged me through that time. She made sure I ate, made sure I got out of bed, made sure I didn't completely fall apart." "I'm grateful to her," James said, "for being there when I wasn't, for taking care of you when I should have been the one doing it." Emma stirred her tea, watching the liquid swirl. "Can I ask you something? During those 6 years, did you ever think about reaching out? Did you ever doubt what you saw in those photos?" James was quiet for a moment, his expression pained. "Every day, especially in the beginning. I would pick up my phone 100 times, your number already dialed, but I could never hit the call button. I told myself I was being strong, that reaching out would only hurt us both more. But the truth is, I was a coward. I was terrified that you would confirm the photos were real, that you had actually chosen someone else over me. It was easier to live with the question than risk knowing the answer. And now," Emma asked, "now that you know the truth, what do you want?" James met her eyes steadily. "I want you back. I want us back. But I know it's not that simple. I know I can't just apologize and expect everything to go back to the way it was. I'm willing to start over, to take things as slowly as you need, to prove to you that I'm not the same man who ran away. I've grown, Emma. I've learned what it means to lose something precious. And if you give me the chance, I'll spend every day showing you that I'll never make that mistake again." Emma felt tears prick her eyes. She had waited 6 years to hear these words, had imagined this conversation countless times in the dark hours of sleepless nights. But hearing it now, seeing the sincerity in James's face, was overwhelming. "I don't know if I can trust you again," she said honestly. "Trust isn't something you can just rebuild overnight. You shattered it, James. You made me doubt myself, doubt my worth, doubt that love was even real." "I know," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "and I'll do whatever it takes to earn that trust back. I'll be patient. I'll be consistent. I'll show up every single day until you believe that I'm here to stay." They talked until the cafe began to close, the staff politely wiping down tables around them. As they walked out together, the rain had stopped, leaving the streets gleaming under the streetlights. James walked Emma to her car, maintaining a respectful distance, not presuming anything. "Can I see you again?" he asked as she unlocked her door. Emma hesitated, then nodded. Friday, there's an art exhibition opening at the gallery downtown. We used to love going to those together. James's face brightened. I'd like that. I'd like that very much. Over the following weeks, they fell into a tentative rhythm. They met for coffee, for walks in the park, for dinners at quiet restaurants where they could talk for hours. James never pushed, never demanded more than Emma was willing to give. He was patient and attentive, listening when she needed to voice her fears. Giving her space when the emotions became too overwhelming, Emma found herself slowly opening up again, letting down the walls she had constructed so carefully. She introduced James to the new parts of her life, the friends she had made, the hobbies she had taken up. He fit in seamlessly, charming Rachel despite her initial skepticism, laughing at Emma's terrible attempts at pottery, supporting her presentation at a major architectural conference. One evening, about 2 months after their reunion, they stood together on the riverside where they had shared their first kiss 7 years ago. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. James had been quiet all day, and Emma could sense something brewing beneath the surface. I need to tell you something, he said finally, taking her hand. Emma's heart raced, unsure of what was coming. I contacted Diana, he continued. Not to yell at her or blame her, but to make sure she gets the help she needs. She's in therapy now, dealing with the issues that made her do what she did. And I wanted you to know that I've forgiven her. Emma stared at him in surprise. You forgave her? After what she did? Not for her sake, James explained. For mine. And for ours. Holding on to that anger, that resentment, it was poisoning me. It was keeping me trapped in the past. I realized that if I want a future with you, if I want us to truly move forward, I need to let go of the bitterness. That doesn't mean what she did was okay. It means I'm choosing not to let it control my life anymore. Emma felt something shift inside her. She had been holding on to her own anger, using it as a shield to protect herself from being hurt again. But James was right. Forgiveness was not about condoning what happened. It was about freeing themselves from the weight of it. I'm not ready to forgive her yet, Emma admitted. But maybe someday I will be. For now, I think I'm ready for something else. What's that? James asked softly. I'm ready to forgive you. The words hung in the air between them, profound in their simplicity. James's eyes filled with tears, and he pulled Emma into his arms, holding her tightly, as if afraid she might disappear. I don't deserve it, he whispered against her hair. But I promise you, Emma, I will spend the rest of my life being worthy of it. They stood there as the sun dipped below the horizon. Two people who had been broken apart now carefully piecing themselves back together. Emma felt something she had not felt in 6 years. She felt whole. As spring turned to summer, their relationship deepened. They moved beyond the past, no longer defined by what had been lost, but by what they were building together. James met Emma's family again, enduring her father's stern looks and her mother's cautious questions with grace and humility. Emma visited James at the hospital, watching him work with patients, seeing the compassion and skill that made him such a good doctor. One Saturday morning, Emma woke in her apartment to find James in her kitchen making breakfast. They had spent the previous evening watching movies and talking until they both fell asleep on the couch. It felt natural, comfortable, like slipping back into a well-worn routine that fit perfectly. Good morning, James said, turning from the stove with a spatula in hand. I made your favorite. Blueberry pancakes. Emma smiled, her heart swelling with affection. I remember everything about you, he said simply, as they sat together eating breakfast. Sunlight streaming through the windows, Emma realized something important. She had fallen in love with James all over again. Not with the memory of who he had been, but with the man he was now. Someone who had made mistakes but learned from them. Someone who showed up every day, consistent and caring. Someone who loved her, not despite her scars, but because of the strength it took to survive them. I love you, Emma said suddenly. The words coming before she could second-guess them. James set down his fork, his eyes wide. You do? I do, she confirmed, feeling lighter than she had in years. I tried not to. I tried to protect myself, to keep you at arm's length. But I can't help it. I love you, James. I probably never stopped. James stood and moved around the table, pulling Emma to her feet and into his arms. I love you too. I've loved you through every moment of these 6 years, even when I thought I'd lost you forever. You're my home, Emma. You always have been. When he kissed her, it felt like coming home after a long journey. All the pain, all the years apart, all the doubt melted away in that moment. They had both been wounded, both made mistakes, both carried scars. But they had also survived, grown, and found their way back to each other. 3 months later, James proposed again. Not with a grand gesture at a fancy restaurant, but on an ordinary Tuesday evening in Emma's living room. They were building a puzzle together, something they had started doing on quiet nights, when he suddenly produced a small velvet box. I know I don't deserve a second chance, he said, opening the box to reveal the same ring he had given her 6 years ago, the one she had returned after he left. But you gave me one anyway. Emma Carter, you are the strongest, most compassionate, most incredible person I've ever known. You took the broken pieces of your heart and built something beautiful from them. Would you let me spend the rest of my life loving those pieces back together? Will you marry me? Emma looked at the ring, then at James, then at the life they had rebuilt together from the ashes of their past. She thought about the journey that had brought them here, about the pain that had almost destroyed them, and the love that had survived it. She thought about trust, forgiveness, and the courage it took to risk your heart again. Yes, she said, tears streaming down her face. Yes, I'll marry me. James slipped the ring onto her finger, and they held each other as the city lights twinkled outside the window. They had lost 6 years of time they could never get back. But they had the rest of their lives ahead of them, and this time, they would not waste a single moment. The wedding took place the following spring at the same church, where they had planned to marry 7 years earlier. Emma wore a simple white dress, her auburn hair flowing loose over her shoulders. Rachel stood beside her as maid of honor, tears of joy streaming down her face. James waited at the altar, his eyes never leaving Emma as she walked down the aisle. When the minister asked if anyone objected, there was only silence. When James said his vows, his voice was strong and sure, promising to love Emma in sickness and health, in joy and sorrow, in certainty and doubt. When Emma said hers, she promised to trust, to forgive, to build a future together based not on who they had been, but on who they had become, as they kissed at the altar. Sealing their commitment, Emma felt a profound sense of peace. Their story was not perfect. It was messy and complicated, filled with mistakes and misunderstandings. But it was theirs, and it was real. They had been torn apart and found their way back together, stronger for having survived the separation. At the reception, as they danced to their song playing softly in the background, James whispered in Emma's ear, "Thank you for giving us a second chance. I promise I'll never take it for granted." Emma smiled up at him, her heart full. "We gave each other a second chance. That's what love does. It endures even when everything else falls apart." As the night wore on, surrounded by friends and family, Emma reflected on the journey that had brought them here. She thought about the woman she had been 6 years ago, heartbroken and lost, and the woman she had become, stronger and wiser. She thought about how easy it would have been to turn away when James reappeared, to protect herself from potential pain. But she had chosen courage over fear, love over bitterness, hope over despair. Life, Emma realized, was not about avoiding pain or protecting yourself from hurt. It was about finding the strength to love again after being broken, to trust again after being betrayed, to hope again after losing everything. It was about second chances and new beginnings, about forgiving others and yourself, about understanding that perfection was not the goal, but growth was. Years later, Emma and James would sit on their porch watching the sunset, their children playing in the yard, and they would remember this time. They would remember the pain and the healing, the mistakes and the forgiveness, the loss and the reunion. And they would be grateful, not for the suffering itself, but for what it taught them about love, resilience, and the incredible strength of the human heart. Their story was not a fairy tale. It was better. It was real, messy, imperfect, and absolutely beautiful. It was a testament to the power of second chances and the enduring nature of true love. And as Emma looked at James, seeing the gray in his hair and the laugh lines around his eyes, she knew with absolute certainty that every moment of pain had been worth it to arrive at this place of profound joy and peace. Love, she had learned, was not about never falling down. It was about choosing to get back up, together, every single time.
They threw a celebration party while I signed my divorce papers. Champagne glasses clinked as my mother-in-law called me a parasite who finally knew her place. My husband kissed another woman right in front of me. They had no idea that in 48 hours I would own everything they ever loved. This is how I destroyed them. If you love stories where the underdog becomes unstoppable, you need to subscribe right now. Hit that bell icon because my revenge is so satisfying, you'll want to watch it twice. Let's dive into this incredible story. My name is Charlotte, and I need you to understand something before I tell you this story. I wasn't always powerful. I wasn't always wealthy. For most of my life, I was just invisible, the kind of person people look through rather than at. I was a kindergarten teacher living in a cramped apartment with furniture from thrift stores and a car that broke down more often than it ran. My mother died when I was 16, leaving me completely alone in this world. Well, almost alone. My father, Henry, had left us when I was 8 years old. He sent money sometimes, enough to keep us afloat, but he never called, never visited, never explained why he abandoned us. My mother would cry at night when she thought I was sleeping, and I grew up believing that my father simply didn't love us enough to stay. She told me he worked in international exports, traveling constantly, but I knew the truth. He chose his work over his family, over me. When my mother passed, the money kept coming through some automated system, but the man himself remained a ghost. I learned to hate him for that. I learned to rely only on myself. I met Nathaniel Winchester at a book reading event 2 years before everything fell apart. He was different from anyone I'd ever known. Tall, well-dressed, with this gentle way of speaking that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. He quoted poetry, asked thoughtful questions, and when he smiled at me across that crowded bookstore, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. He pursued me with an intensity that was overwhelming. Flowers delivered to my classroom, handwritten notes left on my car windshield, long evening walks where he'd tell me about his dreams of escaping the corporate world his family had built. "Charlotte, you're different," he told me one night as we sat by the river. "You're real. Everyone in my world wears a mask, plays a part, but you're genuine. I'm so tired of the fakeness, the pressure, the expectations. With you, I can finally breathe." I fell in love with him completely. How could I not? He made me feel seen, valued, cherished. When he proposed after a year of dating, kneeling in the same spot by the river where we'd had our first real conversation, I said yes, without hesitation. I thought I had finally found my family, the person who would stand by me no matter what. I had no idea I was walking into a nightmare. The first warning sign came when I met his family. The Winchesters lived in a mansion that looked like something from a movie. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, staff members who moved silently through rooms like ghosts. Nathaniel's mother, Vivian, was a tall woman with sharp features and eyes that seemed to calculate your worth in seconds. His father, Sterling, barely looked up from his phone during our entire first meeting. And his sister, Clarissa, spent the whole dinner whispering to her friends and giggling while staring at me. "So, Charlotte," Vivian said, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "Nathaniel tells us you're a teacher. How quaint. That must be quite a challenge, living on such a modest salary. Tell me, dear, how does that work exactly?" I should have seen it then. The condescension, the judgment, the way she said modest like it was a disease. But I was in love, and Nathaniel squeezed my hand under the table, and I convinced myself that she just needed time to get to know me, that once she saw how much I loved her son, everything would be fine. I was so naive. Nathaniel insisted we live with his family after the wedding. "Just for a year," he promised, "just until we save enough for our own place." My parents have so much space, and it'll help us build a foundation. 1 year turned into 5 years of absolute hell, 5 years that broke me down piece by piece until I barely recognized myself in the mirror. Vivienne's cruelty started small. Comments about my clothes being unsuitable for family dinners, suggestions that I eat in the kitchen with the staff rather than at the formal dining table because I didn't know proper etiquette, lists of rules that applied only to me, speak only when spoken to, don't use the front entrance, don't invite anyone over without permission. I tried to follow every rule, tried to be the perfect daughter-in-law, but nothing was ever enough. The more I tried, the worse it became. The physical abuse started about 6 months in. Vivienne slapped me for the first time when I accidentally interrupted her during a phone call. The shock of it left me frozen, my cheek burning, my eyes watering. She looked at me with such cold satisfaction and said, "That's for being disrespectful. Perhaps now you'll learn your place." I waited for Nathaniel to say something, to defend me, to tell his mother she couldn't treat me that way. But he just stood there in the doorway, pale and silent, and then he walked away. That became the pattern. Vivienne would hurt me, humiliate me, destroy me little by little, and Nathaniel would stand there like a statue. In private, he'd hold me while I cried and whisper apologies. "I'm sorry, Charlotte. I love you so much. Just give me time. I'll fix this. We'll get our own place soon, I promise." But the promises never materialized. Time passed, and nothing changed except the depth of my despair. Vivienne pushed me into a glass cabinet once during an argument, and my arm sliced open, blood dripping onto the pristine white carpet. "Look what you've done," she hissed. "You're so clumsy." "Clean this mess up immediately." She threw scalding coffee at me another time, burning my shoulder so badly that the skin blistered. "Oops, my hand slipped." "You really should be more careful around hot beverages, dear." She locked me in the basement storage room overnight in the middle of winter when I dared to suggest that maybe I could attend a work function with Nathaniel. I pounded on that door until my hands were bruised, screaming for help, but no one came. When the housekeeper finally let me out the next morning, Vivienne was eating breakfast like nothing had happened. Clarissa was worse in some ways because her cruelty was psychological. She created fake social media accounts, befriended me online as someone who understood what I was going through, extracted my deepest secrets and fears, and then exposed them at family gatherings. She photoshopped pictures of me with other men and showed them to Nathaniel, planting seeds of doubt about my faithfulness. She found my mother's jewelry, the only thing I had left of her, and threw it away, telling me it looked like cheap junk. When I broke down crying, she filmed it and posted it online with a caption about dramatic gold diggers. Sterling controlled our finances completely. He gave me a $50 weekly allowance and monitored every purchase. When I bought discount groceries to try to save money, he made me return them. "Even our staff buys better quality than this garbage. Are you trying to embarrass this family?" Nathaniel had no access to his own trust fund. Sterling controlled that too. We were both trapped, but Nathaniel had grown up in this prison. He didn't know how to escape it, and eventually, I think he stopped wanting to try. The worst part wasn't the physical pain or even the humiliation. It was watching the man I loved become a coward right before my eyes. Nathaniel genuinely cared about me. I know he did. But Vivienne had spent his entire life breaking him down, conditioning him to submit to her will. Every time he tried to stand up to her, she'd weaponize guilt. "After everything I sacrificed for you? After I nearly died bringing you into this world? This is how you repay me? By choosing some nobody over your own mother?" And Nathaniel would crumble. Every single time. I kept telling myself that things would get better, that love would be enough, that eventually he'd find his courage and we'd escape together. I held on to that hope for 5 years, and then I got pregnant. I discovered it on a Tuesday morning, 10 weeks along. I stared at the positive test in that bathroom, and for the first time in years, I felt something other than despair. I felt hope, real, genuine hope. Maybe this baby would change everything. Maybe becoming a father would give Nathaniel the strength he needed. Maybe Vivienne would soften when she became a grandmother. I planned to tell everyone at Sunday dinner. I even bought tiny baby shoes to make the announcement special. That Sunday morning, Vivian's priceless ruby necklace went missing. It was a family heirloom worth $2 million, and she immediately accused me of stealing it. "She's been jealous of that necklace since the day she saw it," Vivian declared, her eyes gleaming with malicious satisfaction. "Sterling called a family meeting, and I was dragged before them like a criminal on trial." "I didn't take anything," I pleaded. "Please, you have to believe me." But Vivian insisted on searching my room. They found the necklace in my dresser drawer. I had no idea how it got there, but the truth didn't matter. Vivian screamed, called me a disgusting thief, and slapped me so hard I fell to the ground. My lips split open, blood dripping onto the marble floor. Sterling threatened to call the police, and Nathaniel, the father of my unborn child, just stood there, silent, frozen, useless. The stress of it all, the violence, the fear, it triggered cramping, sharp, terrible pain in my abdomen. I felt wetness spreading, looked down, and saw blood, so much blood. I collapsed, right there, screaming for help, begging them to call an ambulance, trying to tell them about the baby. Vivian looked at me with cold contempt and said, "Stop being so dramatic. There is no baby. Just another one of your pathetic lies." Nathaniel finally moved then. He picked me up, carried me to his car, and drove me to the hospital. But it was too late. The doctor confirmed what I already knew. I'd lost the baby. Our baby. The tiny life that was supposed to save us. Gone. I was sedated, and when I woke up hours later, Nathaniel was sitting beside the bed, crying. "I'm so sorry," he kept saying. "I'm so sorry." I looked at him, really looked at him, and I didn't see my husband anymore. I just saw a weak, broken man who had let his family kill our child. "Get out," I whispered. He left. While I was in the hospital for 3 days, Vivian worked behind the scenes to destroy what little remained of my life. She hired someone to create fake bank statements showing I'd been stealing money from the family. $50,000 transferred to a secret account she'd opened in my name. She fabricated emails between me and a mysterious man, suggesting an affair. She paid the doctor who treated me to lie, to tell Nathaniel I'd only been 4 weeks pregnant and couldn't possibly have known about it. She built an entire false narrative, and when I returned to the mansion, Nathaniel confronted me with it all. "Did you marry me for money?" he asked, his voice shaking. I stared at him in disbelief. "What?" "No, Nathaniel, I lost our baby." He cut me off. "There was no baby, Charlotte. The doctor said you were barely pregnant. You couldn't have known." He showed me the bank statements, the emails, all of Vivian's manufactured evidence. "You're a liar," he said. "My mother showed me everything. I want a divorce. My world collapsed. Everything I'd endured, everything I'd survived, it had all been for nothing." "Please," I begged, "please just listen to me. Your mother is lying. She's manipulating you." But he'd already made up his mind. He'd already chosen his mother over me. Again. "I want you gone by morning," he said and walked away. I spent that night in a guest room, crying until I had no tears left. When morning came, I expected to sign papers in a lawyer's office, quiet, private, dignified. Instead, I was told to come to the main ballroom. "The family wants to be present for the signing," someone said. I walked into that room, and what I saw made my blood run cold. They had decorated the ballroom like a celebration. Silver balloons floated near the ceiling. Champagne bottles sat on ice. A banner stretched across the back wall reading "Freedom Day" in glittering letters. Vivian, Sterling, and Clarissa wore expensive designer clothes like they were attending a gala. And there were guests, 30 or 40 family friends and socialites, all holding champagne glasses, all staring at me with amused curiosity. They had thrown a party to celebrate my divorce. Vivian tapped her champagne glass with a spoon, and the room fell silent. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on this joyous occasion," she announced, her voice filled with theatrical happiness. Today, my son is finally freeing himself from a 5-year mistake. Today, he reclaims his life from a woman who tried to trap him with lies and manipulation. Today, the Winchester family closes a very dark chapter. The guests applauded, some of them were laughing, and I stood there in my simple dress, my eyes still swollen from crying all night, completely humiliated. Sterling stood and read the divorce terms aloud like I was being sentenced in court. Charlotte Morgan will receive no alimony. She will receive no assets. She will leave with exactly what she brought into this marriage. Nothing. More applause. She will sign a non-disclosure agreement and never speak publicly about this family. She will vacate the premises within 24 hours. Clarissa shouted, "Can we make it 12 hours?" And everyone laughed. Everyone. The lawyer pushed the papers across the table toward me. My hands shook so violently I could barely hold the pen. I looked at Nathaniel one last time, hoping to see something. Regret, doubt, love, anything. "Do you really believe I'm what they say I am?" I asked him. He couldn't even meet my eyes. He just looked away. Vivian snapped, "Sign the papers, dear. Don't waste our time." So I signed. Each signature felt like I was signing away a piece of my soul. The moment I finished, Vivian popped a champagne bottle. Foam sprayed everywhere as she shrieked, "It's official! She's gone!" The room erupted in cheers and applause. Guests rushed forward with congratulations. Vivian hugged Nathaniel tightly. "You're free, my darling boy. You're finally free." Sterling shook hands with business associates. Clarissa immediately posted a video on social media, filming me at the table, crying, with a caption that read, "Watching a gold digger get what she deserves, Winchester strong." Within an hour, that video had gone viral. Millions of people watched my humiliation and left cruel comments calling me every horrible name imaginable. But Vivian wasn't done. She walked over to me, leaned close, and whispered in my ear, "You were nothing when you came here. You're nothing now, and you'll die as nothing. No one will ever love you. No one will ever want you. You're broken, used, worthless." Then louder for everyone to hear, "Someone escort this woman out, and make sure she doesn't steal anything on her way." 2 security guards grabbed my arms and dragged me toward the exit. I didn't resist. I couldn't. I was in complete shock, my mind unable to process what was happening. As they pulled me through the doorway, a beautiful woman in a designer dress entered. It was Melissa, Nathaniel's ex-girlfriend from college. Vivian had secretly invited her. Melissa walked straight to Nathaniel and kissed him on the lips, right in front of me. Vivian announced triumphantly, "Everyone, meet Nathaniel's real future." A woman of proper breeding. The guests cheered even louder. I watched the man I loved, the father of the child I'd lost, kiss another woman while his family celebrated my destruction. Then I was thrown out the front door. My belongings came after me in black trash bags. The door slammed shut, but I could still hear them. The laughter, the music, the celebration. I collapsed on the front steps and sobbed until I had nothing left inside me. I checked into the cheapest motel I could find. $30 a night, stained carpet, a heater that barely worked. I lay on that lumpy bed and stared at the ceiling. The video of my humiliation had millions of views. Comments called me a gold digger, a liar, a homewrecker, every cruel thing imaginable. I had no friends. Vivian had isolated me for years. No family. No money beyond the $400 in my bank account. No future. I looked at the bottle of pills on the nightstand that I'd gotten for headaches. I thought about taking all of them. I thought about how easy it would be to just stop existing. Maybe Vivian was right. Maybe I was nothing. My phone rang at 2 a.m, an unknown international number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Hello?" My voice was hollow, dead. "Miss Charlotte Morgan?" a man's voice asked. "Yes. My name is Lawrence Foster. I'm calling from Geneva. I'm the attorney for Henry Donovan, my father, the man who abandoned me. I'm calling to inform you that your father passed away 4 weeks ago." I felt nothing. No grief, no sadness, just emptiness. "Okay. Thank you for telling me." I started to hang up. "Wait, Miss Morgan, there's something else. Your father left you something." I laughed bitterly. Let me guess. Debt? There was a pause. Then Lawrence said the words that changed everything. No, his entire estate. Miss Morgan, your father was Henry Donovan. The Henry Donovan, founder and CEO of Donovan Global Industries. The room started spinning. I knew that name. Everyone knew that name. One of the most powerful conglomerates in the world. Technology, pharmaceuticals, real estate, energy. They owned pieces of everything. That's impossible, I whispered. My father worked in exports. That was his cover story to protect you, Lawrence explained. You are now the sole heir to a $75 billion empire. I dropped the phone. Lawrence flew to meet me the next day. He brought boxes of documents, legal papers, financial statements that showed numbers so large they didn't seem real, and he brought one handwritten letter from my father. I read it with shaking hands, tears streaming down my face. My dearest Charlotte, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you the truth while I lived. I wasn't a traveling salesman. I built one of the largest companies in the world. I left you and your mother because my enemies would have killed you both. I had to make you invisible, unknown, safe. Every decision I made, every birthday I missed, every call I didn't make was to protect you. I watched you from afar. I was so proud of the woman you became. Kind, despite having every reason to be cruel. Strong, despite being so alone. I built this empire for you, Charlotte. Use it to change the world. Use it to help those who can't help themselves. And if anyone ever hurt you, destroy them. With all my love, Dad. I spent 2 weeks processing everything, meeting with boards of directors, learning about companies I now owned, understanding the scope of my father's legacy, and I hired the best people money could buy: lawyers, investigators, PR specialists, business strategists. I had them dig into the Winchesters, and what they found was beautiful. Clarissa had filmed herself planting the necklace in my room. She'd been bragging about it to friends. Vivian had paid the doctor to lie. Sterling had been committing tax fraud for years. The family was drowning in secret debt. Their wealth was mostly an illusion. And I owned all their debt through shell companies. I had them exactly where I wanted them. For 8 months, I watched from the shadows as Winchester Properties collapsed. Their investments failed. Lawsuits piled up. Banks refused them. And just when they were on the edge of bankruptcy, a mysterious firm called Phoenix Collective made them an offer: $300 million to save their company. One condition: the entire Winchester family had to attend a board meeting. They celebrated like they'd won the lottery. They had no idea what was waiting for them. The day of the meeting, I woke up feeling calm, powerful, ready. I dressed in a white power suit, white, the color of new beginnings. Diamond earrings my father had left me, hair perfectly styled. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. The broken, abused woman was gone. In her place stood someone else entirely. The Winchesters arrived at the Grand Crystal Hotel looking confident and smug. They entered the presidential suite where 60 people waited: lawyers, journalists, business moguls, board members. Sterling began his rehearsed speech about Winchester legacy and tradition. And then I walked in. The room fell silent. Vivian's face drained of all color. Sterling choked on his words. Clarissa gasped. Nathaniel stood up, confused and pale. I walked to the front of the room, my heels clicking on the marble floor, and stood behind the podium. I smiled. Hello, Vivienne. Sterling. Clarissa. Nathaniel. Did you miss me? Vivian found her voice. What is this? Security. I kept smiling. Security works for me now. Sit down. She sat, stunned. I continued. Let me introduce myself properly. My name is Charlotte Donovan, Chief Executive Officer of Donovan Global Industries, CEO of Phoenix Collective, and as of 9 a.m. this morning, majority shareholder of Winchester Properties. I owned 64% of their company. I'd bought all their debt. It was legal, binding, and absolute. Sterling looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. You're that Donovan? Henry Donovan was your father? I nodded. Yes, the man who built a $75 billion empire. the man you never bothered to ask about because you assumed I came from nothing. Then I played the videos. Every slap, every cruel word, every moment of abuse. Footage of Clarissa planting the necklace, audio of Vivienne's manipulations, medical records proving my miscarriage, the doctor's confession, and finally, the divorce party. Vivienne popping champagne. She's finally gone. The guests laughing, me being dragged out, Melissa kissing Nathaniel. The entire room watched in horror. Journalists recorded everything. Nathaniel stood up, tears streaming down his face. "Charlotte, I didn't know. The baby was real?" I looked at him with ice in my veins. 10 weeks pregnant, Nathaniel. Our child died because of your mother's violence and your cowardice, and you let her throw a party to celebrate divorcing me. He collapsed into his chair, sobbing. "I'm so sorry." I cut him off. Sorry doesn't bring back our baby. Sorry doesn't erase 5 years of torture. Sorry is worthless when it comes too late. Vivienne lunged at me across the table, screaming that I was nothing, that I would always be nothing, that she should have killed me when she had the chance. Security restrained her while I stood there, completely calm. "Thank you for that confession," I said quietly. "We're recording." Then I laid out my terms. I was taking over Winchester Properties completely. Sterling was removed as CEO. Nathaniel was fired. Clarissa was fired. The company would be restructured to build affordable housing. 70% of profits would go to domestic violence charities. The Winchester name would be erased. But I wasn't done. Criminal charges for Vivienne, assault, fraud, conspiracy. The prosecutors already had my evidence. Sterling faced federal charges for tax fraud. Clarissa was being sued for defamation and fraud. And Nathaniel? The divorce was invalid due to technical errors. I was entitled to 50% of his trust fund, $47 million. I would take every penny. Then I delivered the final blow. "Oh, and Vivienne? Remember your precious family mansion? The one that's been in your family for 6 generations? I bought it this morning. Cash offer. $85 million. You have 30 days to vacate. I'm turning it into a shelter for abuse survivors. Your legacy will be helping the very people you looked down upon." Vivienne collapsed, hyperventilating. I looked at all of them one last time. "You celebrated my destruction. So I'm celebrating yours. The difference is, I actually have the power to make mine happen." Then I turned and walked out. My legal team stayed behind to finalize everything. The journalists rushed out to publish the story, and the Winchesters sat in ruins. The story went viral within hours. Video of Vivienne's abuse was shown on national news. The divorce party footage became the most watched clip online. Public outrage was massive. Vivienne was arrested and eventually sentenced to 6 years in prison. Sterling got 8 years for federal fraud. Clarissa was sued into bankruptcy and became a social pariah, and Nathaniel lost everything: his trust fund, his job, his family name. He tried to reach me one last time. Showed up at my office building, shouting from the lobby that he loved me, that he was sorry. Security called me, and I came down. We looked at each other across that marble lobby, and I felt nothing. No love, no hate, just emptiness where he used to be. "You didn't love me, Nathaniel," I said quietly. "You loved the idea of me. You loved having someone who made you feel like a good person, but when it mattered, when I needed you to actually be a good person, you chose silence. Our baby died because of your silence. I died inside because of your silence. And now you want forgiveness because you're hurting? I hope you live a long life, Nathaniel. Long enough to understand the weight of your choices." I walked away. I never saw him again. I honored my father's vision. I used my wealth to create real change. 50,000 affordable homes nationwide, 100 schools in underserved communities, job training programs for abuse survivors, domestic violence shelters in all 50 states. The Winchester Mansion became Charlotte's Haven, the largest domestic violence shelter in the country. 200 beds, therapy services, job training, childcare. Every room where I suffered now helps someone heal. I went to therapy twice a week. processed my trauma, my grief, my father's absence. I learned that revenge felt good in the moment, but healing felt better in the long run. And every Saturday morning, I teach art at my shelter to children who remind me of myself, children who've been hurt but haven't given up. I tell them, you are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become. 1 year after the board meeting, I received a letter from Vivienne in prison. Her handwriting was shaky, desperate. You destroyed my entire life. I have nothing. I am nothing. You've won. Are you happy now? I read it once, then wrote back a single line. Now you know how I felt. The difference is, I didn't deserve it. I sent it back and never thought about her again. People ask me if revenge was worth it. They ask if I feel guilty for destroying the Winchesters. Here's my answer. I don't feel guilty for protecting myself. I don't feel guilty for exposing abusers. Vivienne wanted to break me. She wanted me to believe I was nothing. But I wasn't nothing. I never was. And the moment I realized that, the moment I stepped into my father's legacy, I became unstoppable. The Winchesters thought poverty made me weak. They were wrong. It made me resilient. And when I finally had power, I knew exactly how to use it. Not to become like them, but to make sure no one else suffers like I did. That's not revenge. That's justice. And justice doesn't apologize. That's my story. Sometimes the people who hurt us the most are the ones who end up teaching us our greatest lessons. If this story resonated with you, smash that like button and subscribe for more incredible true stories. Drop a comment telling me, do you think I went too far, or did they get exactly what they deserved? I'm reading every single comment. Remember, your value is not determined by people who can't see it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay strong.